Hey, this is Andrew Aversa with Impact Soundworks, and today I want to show you Momentum. This sample library has been in the works for years. I think I came up with the idea originally in 2014 or so, and it's been a very gradual process to record and edit all the material and put it into a format that makes the most sense for composers and producers. What we have here is a collection of over 2,500 rhythmic performance loops, as well as a whole bunch of one-shot type samples, so individual drum hits, tonal hits, all with dynamics and round-robin layers. We've got two different interfaces to trigger these sounds. We have the loop editor, which is the instrument that you're seeing right now. And then we have the loop mapper, which is more of a menu-style interface where pressing one key triggers the loop in its entirety, and you can map different loops to different keys. Before I go into any of the controls, I just want to give you an idea of the kind of content that Momentum has. Basically, the design goal of this was to fill a gap where there's tons of, epic drum libraries out there, big epic orchestral percussion. There's a lot of synthetic sounds, synthetic pulses, very processed sound design material. And that's fine, but Momentum is all about the organic acoustic material. So you need a low frequency rhythm and you want it to have like sort of a glassy or wooden tone. Again, with Momentum, you can hone in on exactly that kind of sound because we have this whole browser that we built to go through all of these sound sources. For example, if I want to look for low frequency metal sounds that are unpitched, then what I'm going to get is just that type of sound. Or let's say you need pitched sounds. These are instruments that have been played in unusual ways, or things that aren't normally considered tonal instruments, things like brass urns. We can check out what these sound like. You want it to be organic. You don't want it to be, perfectly quantized and mechanical. You want it to sort of breathe life into the track and again, keep it moving forward, hence the name Momentum. This is the exact kind of material that I find myself looking for so often. Now that you have some idea of the kind of material that's in this collection, let's check out some of the loop editing features in a little bit more detail. You can see here on the main page that each slice of the loop is loaded up in Kontakt, and you can drag up and down to adjust various parameters. These are all pretty self-explanatory, and the mod tables are connected to the modulation matrix, which if you've used our Super Audio Cart library, this should be familiar. It lets you connect LFOs, MIDI CCs, random values, key switches, or of course the mod table values, basically to any of the effect controls. So if you want to have something linked to low frequency gain on the EQ, either an LFO or mod table, you can do that. For now, let's check out some of the basic slicing. Down here, the blue keys correspond to the different slices in the loop. If I hold a key, it will continue playing loop all the way through. And then just to show these other ranges real quick, the green keys here will retune the sound either -7 or +7 semitones or anything in between. So let's say that you're playing the loop and you want to just bring these down, these slices. That's very easy to do. You can also change the pitches pretty easily. Or you can change the panning. When you're ready to reset these, you can hold Control, Alt, and click. Easy enough. Let's load up a different kind of sound now. So just going around here, I really like some of these sort of instrument kits that we recorded. So some of these are a whole bunch of different objects and instruments that were played sort of all at the same time. So it's not one specific drum or instrument, but a whole bunch. So we've got the tiny metal kit brushes here, the 5th variation. We confirm, and then we can close the browser like that. If we adjust the filter, so let's say we want to do like a Moog style low pass. But then let's say that we want to actually raise all these values at the same time. Rather than have to manually go through them, you can just hold Alt and then drag up or down. So if we do this, then we should hear everything sort of open up. Or we can bring it back down again. And this is truly really nice for sound design type things. You can take these very organic loops, you can push them well into the processed sound design direction, which is really great if you're doing that sort of action underscore type thing where you want the loops to morph and change over time. And speaking of morphing or changing, I've loaded up a different loop here, these washer brushes. Let's check out some of these red keys. These are trigger effects. So unlike the sort of basic effects track here, which you may have seen in some of our other instruments, we've got, EQ, compression, transient design. These are all super useful tools when you're editing loops. These are actually more like performance effects. So I'm going to play the loop, and you can play it back from any point by pressing or clicking on the appropriate blue key. And it corresponds exactly. So I'm going to hold one of these keys, and then I'm going to press the red keys. So you've got the reverse effects, you've got a shuffle. And then you've got stutters. As well as chops, which you could also call like gating effects. These real-time processing things, you can write in whatever MIDI you want for them, so you can easily reproduce the exact effect for rendering. It doesn't just have to be played in live. There's also purple keys, which provide one-shots associated with the instrument. We have tons of these washer brushes loops. All sorts of rhythmic variations and lengths, but you can add your own hits or create your own patterns by using these keys here. If you ever use another loop library and you just wish that you could change one or two hits or make your own variation on it, then that's what these one-shots are for. Let's check out a few more categories of sounds, like plastic here. Or we could look at all the many different variations of shakers that we have as well. And some of these, again, are like instrument kits that have maybe both shaker and drum elements, or bell and drum elements, things like that. In that case, they'll actually have multiple categories here. So you can have both shaker and drum, or shaker and brush. You can find different examples of that. Switching to the pitched instrument category again, this is ripe for sound design. And something else I want to mention about the library is that it's very much compatible with other sound design tools that you might have. All of these loops are provided as sliced wave and rex2 files, so you can load them up into even things like Stylus RMX if you want for further processing. Likewise, you can also drag the chromatic MIDI slices if you want. So let's take one of these pitch sounds, for example. Let's say I like that sound. We can select that, close the browser, and then we can drag this into my DAW by clicking and holding right there. And then, of course, you can't see it on my screen, but I just dragged the MIDI. And what you end up with is something like this. And you can map this onto other instruments. For example, you could use this as data for a synthesizer, or you can map another drum loop to it. It's just a super useful bonus feature that we have. Now let's take a look at the Loop Mapper tool. And this is very useful for inspiration, very useful for quick writing. You can assign a different loop to each key, and you still have some basic sound editing tools, some effects, as well as different volume panning and tuning for each key. Let's say we want to add just like a cool pulse layer, and we want to have different elements there. So let's start browsing. Start with the low frequencies, unpitched instruments. Got a nice low thud there. So let's move on, get one more bass thing. We'll do unpitched again. And I'm going to go with, we want drums specifically. Okay, so we've got our low frequencies. We'll go on to mid frequencies next. Dryer ones are pretty cool. And how about a brushed drum of some kind? So we could do brush bongos maybe. That's pretty cool. I can see that working well. Then we want some high frequency stuff. So we'll do high frequency, maybe either wood, perhaps. And then finally, how about high frequency metal? So great, now we have all of our loops that we just selected from C1 to A1, and I only did it on the white keys. Very cool, very useful. And you do have the ability to load the same loop across multiple keys. So let's say we like these bike spokes and we want to pan this one hard left, but increase the tune. So what we can do is we'll look for the same sound here, bike spokes. We'll pan this one to the right, but we'll tune it down. We have both loops, but they're in a nice stereo spread because the tuning is different. Okay, so how about all these one-shots? Like I mentioned before, we have one-shots for all of the unpitched sounds, and these are menu style in these atonal one-shots patches. So each of these keys is a different instrument, essentially, or a different hit or different stroke or articulation. And we have 2 patches worth. It would take me a while to play through every single sound, but that's just to give you an idea. This represents a good chunk of the library. Many of the drums and found objects that we sampled are multi-sampled here. Lastly, we have the chromatic sounds, and these get their own patches, so you have each sound or articulation across the entire keyboard. So if we want to do like a picked bouzouki, you got that here. Or, brush darbuka. The brush sounds are some of my favorites in the library. And there's some beautiful, very subtle sounds too. Let's try this with some effects too. So we can do some synced delay here. How about eighth note? And we have our custom convolution impulses. And last but not least, besides all of the sound source material that I've given you a taste of, we also threw in a number of snapshots to help, sort of jumpstart your creativity with using the Loop Designer engine. I'll just load up a few of these at random and you can check them out. And that should give you a good idea of what Momentum has to offer. It's really something special, and it fills a niche that, for me, has been a real problem just for years, that organic, driving, acoustic sound to push a track forward. You can pick up Momentum now for $149. It requires the full version of Kontakt 5.5 or higher, so you actually do not need the latest version of Kontakt, but you do need the full Kontakt, not Kontakt Player. However, if you don't have Kontakt, you actually can still use all of the Wave and Rex loops. I hope you'll enjoy making music with Momentum. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and please send us music that you've done with this instrument. We'd love to hear it.